Hey guys, it's Harrison and welcome back to Awkward Sports History. There's probably no championship in North American sports that has that same prestige as the Super Bowl in the NFL. It's got the pizzazz and everything, and even though like 60% of the time it's a good game, it still draws people in every single year. But why is the NFL so good at putting on a championship game? It's because they are just really good at doing it. They've been doing it for years. They have the reps. Even before the Super Bowl, they had the NFL championship game. So when it came to challenging the AFL, it was really just adding that extra round and putting it on neutral site. Let me tell you, that first playoff game, that first time they ever tried doing a postseason to decide a champion, it definitely had that first time feel to it. Let's look into it. Let's look at how big of a mess the first NFL playoff game was. Oh, and don't forget to hit like and subscribe down below. Let's go back to 1932 when the NFL was just 13 years old. In the early years of the NFL, there was no playoff. What we would call the regular season today was all that there was, and teams with the best winning percentage at the end of the year would be named NFL champions. And it was strictly winning percentage. Having more wins didn't matter, and ties really were just considered dead games. And this surprisingly really wasn't an issue from the start of the NFL in 1920 until the 1932 season. At the end of the season, the Chicago Bears and the Portsmouth Spartans were tied at the top of the standings with 6-1 records each and winning percentages of .857. Normally this wouldn't be an issue because the NFL had a tiebreaker in place to make sure that if any teams finished with the identical winning percentage, there would be a tiebreaker to allow for a championship. There's just one problem. The Bears and the Spartans both tied each other in both of their games, as in there was no head-to-head advantage. Since they were both ties, there's no point advantage or anything rendering all tiebreakers useless. They had to find another way to crown the champion. Since the NFL wanted a sole champion, they allowed the Bears and the Spartans to organize a playoff game in Chicago. Here's where the issues start to show up. The game was originally meant to be played at Wrigley Field where the Bears played, but there's a huge blizzard and it was really cold, so they had to move the game indoors. As a result of the weather, the game was moved to Chicago Stadium, which was home of the hockey team, the Chicago Blackhawks, and later down the road, it would be the home to the Chicago Bulls of the NBA. Putting an NFL game in a hockey rink doesn't sound so bad until you realize it's too small. The field was only 60 yards in between the goal lines, and it was 10 yards narrower than it was supposed to be, so they had to improvise some rules. The most notable rule changes would be anytime a team crossed the 10-yard line, they moved the ball 20 yards back to factor in that the field was smaller. They also decided not to have field goals or drop kicks. If you don't know what a drop kick is, it's kind of hard to explain, so I'll leave a link to the Wikipedia page in the description below. Due to the small nature of the stadium and the really rough playing surface, they were playing on mulch. It led to offenses really struggling and defenses dominated. As a matter of fact, no one scored until the fourth quarter. Actually, besides scoring, the small field actually made it really hard to do anything. A forward pass was thrown into the stand, and so was basically every kickoff and punt. Only one punt was returned because they kept going into the stands. One of the kicks actually hit one of the Blackhawks signs that were hanging from the rafters, and another kick actually struck the organist as he was playing. This would mean during the first playoff game, more kicks hit objects off the field than were actually returned. But despite all the issues, a winner would happen in this game. The Chicago Bears beat the Portsmouth Spartans by a score of 9-0. Yes, I'm very aware that's a very low score for a football game. The Spartans had one chance to actually score in the game, and they botched it when their player Glenn Parsnell tripped before he reached the goal line, probably because of the rough playing surface. The Bears picked up their only touchdown on a controversial call when the quarterback didn't go enough yards behind the line of scrimmage. At the time, a quarterback had to drop 5 yards back behind the line of scrimmage before he made the throw. However, he did not, but they called it a touchdown anyway. The Bears would pick up the other 2 points on a safety after the Spartans fumbled the ball in the end zone. And then the clock winds down, and there you have it. The first NFL playoff game ever has been played. So despite the fact that it was a mess, this game was actually very popular, and it changed the NFL forever. The NFL decided they would do a championship every single year afterwards. They also changed some rules, especially after some controversial calls where now a quarterback could make a throw anywhere behind the line of scrimmage instead of having to go 5 yards back first. This one decision helped cultivate the NFL to slowly become more and more of a passing league. This game also meant that playing a football game indoors was actually very viable, which was very helpful when other teams in the future started playing in domes and in stadiums with retractable roofs. But there's still one more thing left to cover. What's the aftermath for these two teams? For the Chicago Bears, well, they're around to this day. They went on to win 6 more NFL championships and the Super Bowl in 1985. As for the Portsmouth Spartans, as you probably could have guessed, they don't exist anymore. In 1934, they packed up and moved north to Detroit to become the Detroit Lions. It's almost fitting as if they lost that game because, they had to prepare to become the Lions. And I know probably most Lions fans know they were the Portsmouth Spartans, and through some of the mishaps that went through this game, they thought, yeah, that sounds like our predecessor. The Spartans are probably thinking, we're moving to Detroit in a couple of years. We need to really get ready. Let's start losing some games. And by the way, Lions fans, I'm fully aware the Lions won some NFL championships. I'm just grinding your gears. But that'll do it. That's the awkward history of the first NFL playoff game. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.